Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me today, a man who needs no introduction. However, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who know him, no introductions necessary. Well, and for those of you who don't, simply no introduction will do. So I guess that is somewhat of an introduction for Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, what's going on, my friend?
I was going to say, for those who know me, they love me anyway. And even the ones that don't love me really do secretly deep down. And if you don't know me, well, when you do, you'll love me because I'm just so lovable.
You're lovable and huggable. He's like a great big teddy bear. Hey, wait a minute. Get to the point. Get to the football. You got to go straight.
There is
to
no
the football.
There's nothing to talk about. We had a stupid bye week early in the season. What the heck is going on? It's not right. I got my box cutter out and I was ready to head up to New York and slice and dice Mr. Goodell, but I don't know if it was really his fault or not, but it just was annoying.
I was blaming it on Al Riveron, and I still had a problem with the officiating even though there wasn't a game. Oh, well, they still screwed some games up anyway, so I mean, oh boy. What game was it with the catch that was overturned? Was that the Texans? It was, now I'm trying to think which one it was. I'm drawing a blank, and it was just like, oh, dear goodness. And, I was watching all the AFC North games, which was kind of agonizing because, one, it makes you vomit in your mouth repeatedly, and second, none of the games were really that good, and they were all on at the same time, so my head was on a swivel. But let's talk, where do we want to – let's talk about that real quick, I guess. The Bengals get their first win. They're 1-2-1 now. I guess that's an improvement based on last year. Joe Burrow, he did some things and stuff. I'm not going to say that, he was beating the world here in the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 1-3. That team has some issues all their own. Joe Mixon was a man possessed, though. I think he scored, 3 touchdowns, and he had 151 yards rushing. One of those touchdowns was receiving, and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, those guys are great young receivers. So they got some things going on there, but there was no pass rush really, I think, from the Jaguars. And there's no offensive line when you talk about the Bengals. And, that's one of those opponents that'll be coming up here in the near future for the Steelers. Obviously, they play them twice based on being in the AFC North, but they're still down in the pecking order. Steelers are still 3-0, and I think the thing that I see here, Brian, is I look around all of these different games. There's a lot of teams that are successful right now. There's not like a bunch of middle road teams. There's like a lot of bad teams and a lot of what appears to be good teams, and not much else in between, because you're trying to figure out, okay, but somebody asked this too before the Steelers game, got postponed, canceled, moved, and whatnot, was if the Steelers are for real, based on who they had already played. They played the Giants, they played the Broncos, and the Texans. And, I would think the Texans were a little bit more worthy of an opponent. I don't know exactly when Bill O'Brien is going to get fired, but you have to imagine that is on the horizon, if they continue to
If he doesn't get fired soon, J.J. Watt's going to kill him.
It's very well plausible, man. I mean, it's just they're 0-4 now, and this is what I mean. You got several teams that are just bottom basement here. You got an 0-4 Giants team. As we're recording, we don't have the Falcons score as of yet, but they're 0-3 headed into the Monday night game. So the Texans and the Jets, they're all winless at this point. And you got some teams, you got the Dolphins are 1-3, the Washington football team's 1-3, Broncos and Chargers 1-3, 1-2-1 Bengals, I don't even know what that is, 1-3 Vikings and Lions, the NFC East, which, that's who everyone in the North gets to play, including the Steelers, get to beat up on all these teams. 1-2-1 Philadelphia Eagles, a 1-3 Dallas Cowboys team that looked absolutely miserable defensively. It looks like they have like the 32nd ranked defense, maybe 34th. There aren't even 34 teams, but we could probably drum up a few practice squads that could play better. And then it looked like they have the top offense. And then the Cleveland Browns made them look like a bunch of chumps. I mean, it wasn't even close. It was like Dallas just repeatedly shot themselves in the foot, including, did you watch the game by any chance? Did you see the end of that game?
I didn't watch the whole game. I watched little snippets of it. The neighbor lives across the street's a big Cowboys fan, and I was messaging him during the game going, you can't lose to the Browns. I don't root for the Cowboys ever, but, you can't lose to the Browns. And he said, at the end of the game, he said, if you hear a gunshot, don't worry about it. It's just me after this game.
Oh, jeez.
And
that's
I was
not,
like, well,
that's not good. You might want to check in on your neighbor.
I didn't hear one, so it's okay.
Okay.
But the thing is, I posted every time I watched the Browns had the ball, and I put this in the back rooms. Apparently Dallas defense is just, I won't say what I said, but the Dallas defense is butt. How about that?
Yeah, they stinketh. They suck. They're bad. They're so pitiful. The Browns put up, let me see, 40,
almost a 50-bit.
Yeah,
49, man.
Yeah, 49
Crazy
points.
Stuff.
That's the most points they scored. Well, they scored 31 in the first half. It was the most they scored in a first half since December 1st, 1991. I was 10 years old. That was against the Colts, and Bernie Kosar was their starting quarterback. Man, and then the Browns, they've scored 30 points in 3 straight games for the first time since 1968. Were they even in the NFL back then? I don't know. Like, Browns fans always like to tell me all these championships that they have. And it was like when everybody was off the war and, the Steelers and Eagles had to combine and make one team. I'm sure that was very competitive, and then they played in a football league that didn't even exist. It's like it would have been like they won 4 championships in the XFL and then they were absorbed by the NFL and then exposed and then didn't win many games. But anyways, the new coach Kevin Stefanski has won as many games as I think Hugh Jackson has the entire time, his whole tenure as a coach. So, but then again, you look at the opponents and you're like, okay, the Cowboys were awful. The Washington football team, also awful. But I'm not sure that you saw they had the Cowboys about 3.5 minutes left in the game, a little more than 3.5, 3:47 they score. They scored how many touchdowns in a row here? Let me see.
It was 24 unanswered points in the third quarter before Cleveland, I think, finally scored again on whatever that reverse was to.
Well, that was the final. That was the final score. So you had a 3-yard rush by Tony Pollard. Yeah, that was really good for the fantasy folks who they love seeing people vulture the touchdown. So there was a 2-point conversion there, and. Let me see. There was a 2-point conversion. They had like 3-3-point conversions in a row, which was insane. So they had 3 touchdowns, each with 3-point conversions, 24 points. Browns get the ball. But now they also had an onside kick. They had 2 interesting onside kicks. They had one where it looked like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think he was a 7th-round pick out of Michigan. He's like their kick returner. And it looked like he may have touched the ball. It was another one that he squibbed. They put the ball sideways, and he kicked it, and it looked like this flying saucer going down the field. And he didn't touch it, and he let it go into the end zone. It looked like it was awful close. And if he would have touched it, it would have been one of the greatest botches of all time. Instead, what we get is on the next attempt. That was the one before they got within 41-30. Then it was 41-38. They're down by 3 points. They're going to attempt this again. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Mike McCarthy, their new head coach there in Dallas, is like, we can't play defense. That's what it was all about. They only had one timeout. They had a 2-minute warning, though, in their favor. If they were able to generate a stop, but I would have rather tried to make Cleveland go 75 yards, at least 75 yards, if it would have touched back. Instead, they try another squib. Cleveland gets the ball in the middle of the field, 50-yard line. So this is the end round we're talking about. Odell Beckham gets this ball, and he's stopped almost 20 yards short in the backfield by Alden Smith, who can't make the tackle. And then for some reason, there's no other Cowboys defenders anywhere on the field, and he goes the whole distance, 50-yard rush. I got to play him in fantasy. My opponent had him this week, so I was just in tears, not only because I thought the Browns were going to blow this game, to be completely honest. And then not only that, but then, my fantasy opponent gets another whatever, however many points off a 50-yard rush and a TD. And then there's a blocked kick. So the Cowboys block the extra point attempt, and the ball ends up, and you can't advance it, right? You can't advance the ball if you're Cleveland off a block kick. You basically just recover it. What ends up happening is this ball like flies, floats around, skips, hops, and bounces into the end zone. And then none of the Cowboys fall on it. It's the exact opposite of falling on the grenade thing that everybody was making fun of the Falcons for doing. And the Browns recover it and end up with a 2-point conversion. The referees are all like in their huddle like, okay, this rule, subsection, whatever, overrides this and this. They have to do this on the fly. I was hoping someone was speaking in their earpiece. So they finally announced it's a 2-point conversion. And then, of course, New York doesn't get in on the video thing or whatever. And Dean Blandino says, yeah, you can't advance it. But since they recovered it in the end zone, then it counts for the 2-point conversion. It was like those two plays back to back. It was just a series of, and if you count the 4, because you had the touchdown pass, and then you had the 2-point conversion, which was an Amari Cooper run, those 4 plays in a row, I mean, fun football if you're watching it, agonizing if you hate both teams like I do. There were some people that were, reveling in seeing the Cowboys win, and there were some people that were that are deathly afraid that, we're going to play the Browns, and they're doing, look at all this that they're doing, and I'm like, okay. Just in the same way. I mean, the Ravens embarrassed them. They've beaten so far the Bengals 35-30, the Washington football team 34-20. There's another team with some turnover issues, and 49-38 with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it looks impressive. We're going to see what they do this week. They're going to end up having the Colts. The Colts are somewhere, I don't know. The Colts, I'm not sure what to think of that team right now with Phillip Rivers and everything like that. They're 3-1, but again, it's like they beat the Jaguars, Vikings, and Jets, and they lost to the Jaguars. That's the only game the Jaguars have won. So they beat the Vikings, Jets, and Bears so far. You just don't know. The Bears look like they turn into a pumpkin again with Nick Foles. We have to play the Colts sometime in the future, so I had a little bit of interest in watching that since they moved that game to the 425 in lieu of talk about teams getting screwed like we're about to talk about with the Steelers bye. New England getting on a plane, going to Kansas City, and then hopping on the plane right after the game, too. They're not even going they're like going straight and reporting directly to the stadium. I don't know that that's necessarily great against the defending Super Bowl champions, one extra day of rest or not, but
Brian Hoyer will bring him victory.
So, anyways, we're looking at, what was the other AFC North game? Oh, yeah, the Ravens. They played that Washington football team, too, if you count that. I think RG3 threw a pick. He actually came in the game in like the fourth quarter, and 31-17. That game wasn't even anywhere near close. The team formerly known as the Redskins just, I don't know, they need to find a name or something. They have no other identity. They're as bland as their branding is right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's just...
It's not good. I tried to watch that game. I don't know. There's so many Ohio State guys on that team. I just wanted them to decide, let's all just win a game. But
they've won exactly one, but it is the NFC least. And you talk about the Ravens too. Yeah. They lost to the Chiefs. That's their one loss. All their wins, Browns, Texans, and Washington football team. So a quarter of football played so far. Steelers get cheated out of their bye, Brian. That bye was supposed to be, week 7. So now that's getting moved, and there's some not so fun stuff when it comes to this. If you remember, I wrote about this on the website a few days ago too, and I was talking about the last time the Steelers had it stuck to them was against the Chiefs. It was a game in which they couldn't score a touchdown at Arrowhead. They moved it back from a 1 o'clock kick to prime time. That's the infamous Antonio Brown Facebook Live video where Mike Tomlin said we gave those a-holes a head start or a day head start because the Patriots played the night before, like a 6 o'clock start or whatever. It was the latest starting divisional game in the modern league era or period. I don't know. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
They moved that into prime time. It did them no favors whatsoever. And, of course, you see what ends up happening. They go to the AFC Championship game a week later against the Patriots. They lose Lev Bell, I think, had like 5 carries. I think he played not even 10 snaps. He was out in the first quarter. They tried to run D'Angelo Williams. Ben said some of these guys weren't in the moment. And then everything kind of went from there. It sounded like he wasn't committing on his radio show a few days later. He was so upset he wasn't committing to playing anymore. Now here we are. Let's see what this ends up doing when the Steelers are preparing for an opponent. Instead of taking the actual bye week rest that they normally would have, they had to take an extra day off because the CBA has 4 days built into it, and they only had 3 days that they gave for the bye because the NFL decides like on Thursday that they're going to change this game. We were going to record about it. Terry touched on it in the WTF a little bit. And, instead of having 2 3-0 teams play each other and see, who's superior and down in Nashville, first game with fans. They just don't have a game, period, because all these Titans players tested positive. Say what you will about the testing. There are some goofy things going on. It's like, okay, so you get Cam Newton who tests positive, right? And then this is the starting quarterback for the Patriots right now. And I guess it's just one player and there isn't a whole bunch of people. I'm not sure what the threshold is. I'm not sure why the reason of expanding practice squad rosters and things of that nature is for if you're going to continue one game and not continue the other, or if they just feel it wasn't for the safety of like the Steelers or anybody like that they had to give more of a waiting period because there was more. I don't know. I don't know how that works.
I get it. I actually understand what went on with the Steelers, and I don't have a problem with it. The problem was the positive results kept coming back every day. You know, it wasn't that they all came in one day and it was like, oh, we have 18 positive players and coaches. It was, we have 3 today. Oh, and then the next day we have some more. Oh, and then the next day we have some more. Oh, and then the next day we have some more. And because of the way it played out, you know, that just keeps pushing the date back for when they can do anything. And it's not about, do we have enough practice squad people? It's about, when are we going to get some negative tests? We have to wait until we get the people who could play all negative, so that we don't have this accidental exposure. I get that. I'm okay with that. I don't love the solution that they came up with, but I'm not going to cry about them having to play 13 straight weeks, and neither are they. But it sucks. It still stinks. It would have been a much better solution to add the 18th week at the end of the season, in my view, because the thing is, it's going to happen again. And whether it happens to the Steelers or somebody else, gosh forbid it happens to the Steelers, because then what are they going to do? You know, if the Steelers get up against another opponent where this same situation occurs, now you don't have any of that flex room, but somebody else is going to run into this. It's not going to be just the Steelers and the Titans that have this issue. I thought maybe the Patriots and Chiefs would, but apparently Cam Newton is so isolated that, only he got positive.
Well, and they were getting on the plane. That's like my thing. And then you also had the guy in New Orleans that ended up testing. What was it, like the fullback or whatever? And they said, he buddies up with Elvin Kamara, and then they went and they tested, and then they said, oh, no, that one was false. And I'm like, here was my thing. It's like, I don't know. We're not privy to this, and they probably wouldn't tell us anyways, but it was just obviously, it was strange that guy got tested immediately right after. I don't know if the other Titans players who tested positive got tested again in the same way, and if there was anything that changed with that. I mean, I'm assuming not, since they didn't play the game. So I get that part of it, but it was just weird. The Patriots were getting on the plane, and the Saints, I think, may have gotten off of it already or whatever. The way this all went down this weekend with all these different scenarios and the COVID testing. And then, of course, it was who did they just play? The Titans had just played the Vikings, and the Vikings had nobody test positive either. So it's just a very odd situation. The Steelers are the only ones, obviously the Titans too, but they have their schedule completely rearranged there. And I don't know how it impacts the Titans. Quite frankly, I don't care at this point. I should care. I should take a look and see. I'm going to do that just because
it sort of does the same thing to them, right? I mean, they're going to have to play the rest. This was their bye now. So you got 2 teams who had a bye week in week 4, which means that they got to play 13 weeks straight.
No, well, I'm trying to see.
It may not be as bad as the middle ground that the Steelers are going to have, where they have to play the Ravens after the Ravens get a bye and that kind of nonsense. But they're going to have to play 13 straight weeks.
Well, the Titans play at home. Let's see. They got the Bills. It looks like they have the Bills and the Texans. Let me pull this up for sure. Both at home, and then the Steelers. So 3 straight home games, where the Steelers are actually going to end up with 4, but the break in the middle. That's half your schedule. Somebody's like, well, the Steelers are playing all these games at home. Somebody that wasn't really trolling me on Twitter. Actually, I enjoy seeing their tweets. So if they're listening, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just basically saying, what kind of advantage is that when half of your home games don't even have fans? It's not really that much of home field advantage other than not traveling. And then you're going to have all this travel coming up. So yeah, they play 3 straight at home. So it's going to be, instead of having their bye after Houston, now they have to play the Steelers, and then they go to Cincinnati, and then they get 2 more at home. The Steelers situation is, completely awful. I don't like what ended up happening here. So you have 3 AFC North opponents within this 5-week window. You have 2 of those opponents coming off of a bye. Now the Ravens game getting moved back, and then sliding the Titans in there during what was supposed to be the Week 7 bye for the Titans. Steelers and Ravens were supposed to have a Week 8 bye, so they moved them back to Week 8. Now the Ravens get Week 7, leading into the Steelers going to Baltimore. Now they have a bye. to prepare and play at home. The Steelers have to go. So the Steelers have the Eagles and the Browns at home. Then they're going to go and play in Tennessee. Then they're going to go play Baltimore coming off of that bye. And who is my other game here? Oh, and then go play the Cowgirls. And then they'll end up playing one more AFC North opponent here with the Bengals at home. Go to Jacksonville where, in November, I guess they're going to not be used to that weather. It's hot and they play sucky in Florida all the time. And then turn around and have a short week to host the Ravens on Thanksgiving night. There's a daunting schedule. It's just juggernaut after juggernaut after juggernaut. And all these games are still under the flex scheduling now. So they could easily move one of like this Ravens game that's going to be week 8 or the Titans one. These games could be moved too into primetime, which can further send things into disarray. It's tough, Brian. The only saving grace I could see is that the Steelers are 3-0. Publicly, no, they're not going to say anything the same way that we are as far as complaining or anything of that nature. But you got to know they're thinking it. You got to know they're going to be feeling it in about 4 to 6 weeks instead of having a bye smack dab in the middle of all of this, which would help refresh them, such as the team that had the best record in football last year and won the division will still have kind of that mid-season break. It really is a competitive disadvantage, in my opinion.
It is. I mean, there's no question about it. Look, it's a tough schedule to play that many weeks in a row. We get aggravated when they have to play 9 weeks in a row. Now they got to play 13, and it could even get worse because what happens if they make let's be positive. They make the playoffs, but maybe they make it into the first week and they don't get the bye. Well, remember this is the first year where there's the extra slot. Right. So, maybe they get in and now they got to play. They only get the 1 week off at the end of the season in between, or is there even a week off at the end? I think there is. But, I don't know. It could be even worse. They may have to play so much to get to where they need to get. All you can really say at this point is that they know what they have to face. So they're going to have to deal with it. I'm encouraged in the sense that from what I watched on Sunday, I do not see a defense with the kind of speed at outside linebacker that we have anywhere else in the league. I see a lot of bad offensive lines in the league. I see teams that we're going to play that I think TJ Watt and Bud Dupree are likely to feast upon. As I think Dale Lally posted next, he's like, the Steelers have only sacked a quarterback 10 times, twice in the history, but they may do that again and more against this horrible Philadelphia offensive line, and they might. Look, there's reasons still to be optimistic. It's just it's very frustrating to have to adjust what you thought was going to be. The way the schedule was run to now go crud. Our bye's over. Oh man. And if you don't, I don't even know if we have a mini bye somewhere in there when we got a Thursday night game going to maybe a Monday or something. I'd have to look. I mean, I'm sure
after the Thanksgiving game against the Ravens, then they get like the little bit of a mini bye. That's the only break. And then they'll be playing at home back to back. So they have the Ravens Thanksgiving at home, and then they'll have those extra few days following that. And then play the Washington football team. Then they go away to the Buffalo Bills, away to the Bengals for a Monday night game. Both of those games are prime time, so Sunday night, Monday night, home last home game, Week 16 against the Colts, and then away to play the Cleveland Browns. Both of those are 1 o'clock scheduled games at this time. So, no, I needed to share this with you because I was listening to some games via radio call too, including the Browns. And I actually, since it was Sirius XM, I had the Cowboys feed, which was interesting. The announcers were ripping their own team pretty badly. They actually looked up the statistic to see what the franchise record was for giving up rushing yards when they had already given up 200 somewhere in the first half. And it was something like 357 and back in the 60s or something, when Shep was a pup. The other thing that was pretty good was, what was this? They were talking about their right tackle, Terrence Steele, and this is a funny one. Terrence Steele, he's a rookie. Let me see. Oh, he's undrafted rookie as their right tackle. So he wasn't even drafted. And they said last week he had a case of the flu. This week he has a case of Myles Garrett. And it was true. Myles Garrett was terrorizing. So the reason I bring that up is because Myles Garrett has been about as highly rated as any edge rusher so far, according to the Pro Football Focus Wizards. And you have
those not named T.J. Watt.
Those not named T.J. Watt is ranked higher. So you put Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt out there on these guys. They still have Tyron Smith. He's back, but man, it's going to be tough sledding too for that team, especially when you stop the run the way the Steelers do. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening, or if they just get tired down the stretch too. I mean, when you play a team like Baltimore, and when you play a team like Tennessee, I'm sure they're going to be worn out as it is, and then have to go back and play Baltimore. Those are two grueling games, and then go on the road again and play the Cowboys, who aren't very strong, but still, that's a game that could surprise you just based on fatigue. You don't have that break. You don't have that break anymore. Yeah. They were supposed to have the bye before they go to the Cowboys. After what is every single time a war when the Baltimore, even Cincinnati for that matter. Although Cincinnati, I don't think is as strong defensively and as dirty as they were during the Paul Gunther days and Fontez Burfict and things like that. But still, the divisional games, they take something away from you.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Look at the division as it stands right now. You've got a 3-0 team in the Steelers, 3-1 team in the Browns, 3-1 team in the Ravens, and the Bengals finally won a game early in the year, and probably are better. Certainly are better than anybody in the NFC East. So I don't know. The division looks pretty tough, and all we can do is keep keeping on, man. Just keep on trucking.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a short episode because, there isn't much else to do but cry and complain about this rescheduled game. We were going to speculate on all sorts of things, and we were like, you know what? As soon as we talk about this, it's going to be invalidated within hours when the league makes up its mind on what it's going to do. So we were looking forward to hopefully like a Monday or Tuesday game even, the way they were speculating the same with the Patriots and the Chiefs. And, now we just look ahead to the Eagles. We'll be doing that later this week. Eagles, they got one, but that wasn't pretty either against the San Francisco 49ers team that's lost, something like 24 players due to injury. They just, what else can you say about that? That game was about as ugly it can be. You're making fun of the Thursday night games that they had. This was the Sunday night feature, and then I guess with week 4 they couldn't flex it yet. They start to flex games next week, but I don't think they've moved anything yet. I think they have to give a 2-week heads up. So I think the Browns and the Steelers, or I should say the Eagles and the Browns games coming up the next 2 weeks are safe. But look ahead to that week 7 or the week 8 games that have just been moved. Titans now week 7 slot, Ravens week 8. Either one of those could be moved. I don't know. How many times can you put the Browns, or not the Browns, but the Baltimore Browns? That's what they should be called.
I got some interesting news about this Eagles game.
Oh, yeah? Well, hold on one second. I was going to say, how many times can you put those two teams in prime time? They do it once every year. They already have them on Thanksgiving. I don't think you do it twice, but you never know. So what's your Eagles story here?
Well, it's not really an Eagles story, but, I'm going away the weekend of the Eagles game. I will actually be watching the Eagles and the Steelers in a Steelers bar in New Haven, Connecticut, called Eli's on Whitney. So, I don't know if we have any Connecticut listeners out there, but if you want to come hang out, I'll be at Eli's on Whitney because otherwise I have to miss the game, and I don't want to do that. So I'm driving down from Vermont to Connecticut, and I just like to say it that way. I know it's really not how you pronounce Connecticut, but I like Connecticut.
You'll love this fun fact. Not only do I have a good friend who lives in Connecticut also, but I have family. I've actually been there. So New Haven, Connecticut. It's been ages, but that's where Yale is. So.
Yes, I've been there several times myself. I've driven through it, but we'll be stopping, watching the game there, and then heading the rest of the way home. So we might be a little late on the after post game pod, but
Yeah, we'll see if we can't get the professor off his butt. I know he's been busy coaching guys up and doing his thing with his new coaching gig. over there in Utica. I guess we could say all that now because he formally announced it. We never did get to say a proper congratulations on the air to him, but
well deserved by the professor. He's a genius of football. He's the professor of football, and darn it, he should be coaching now.
Yes.
And once he moves to the NFL, he's going to forget all us peons, but we've told him he's not allowed.
This is very true. Well, that'll do it for us. We're up against it, Brian. So his name's Brian. My name's Joe. Hey, thanks for joining me once again, and we'll get together and do this again very soon before the week's out.
Sounds like a plan, man.
It does sound like the plan, and hopefully we got to your football content a lot quicker. The show was a half hour shorter because we didn't talk about all sorts of other things and stuff. But what else can we do? There's no movies in movie theaters. And even if you want to go to a movie theater, there's like one movie to go
I got
see,
a story.
and that's it. There's nothing else going on. There's not even a football game. What?
This is a great story.
Yes.
All right. So, the gym's opened here in New Jersey.
Okay.
Right? And so, but you got to wear a mask, right?
Yes.
So now that I'm all slender and slimified and starting to get all muscly and what do they call swole? That's what I'm getting,
swole.
And anyway, I'm doing the stair climber thing now because I'm doing this Mount Everest challenge thing. So I'm doing this stair climber, and my mask that I got to wear, my Steelers mask, is just completely saturated with sweat, right? And so as you breathe in and out, right, the mask is moving. Not that anybody can see what I'm doing because we don't have video right now, but my mask is moving back and forth on my face. So I take a big breath in because I'm doing like 114 steps a minute on the stair climber. So I'm busting my butt, right? And I take a deep breath in, and the mask gets in my mouth, and I sucked all the sweat out of the mask into my mouth, and it was gross and nasty. But, so that's a different kind of thing. It was gross.
We could have done completely without that story, by the way. So.
Come on, that was fun.
Actually, you wear a mask in Ohio, but on the cardio machines, I think they've taped off ever so many apart. So you don't have to wear a mask like if you're on a treadmill, but if you're like lifting weights and stuff. So it's as long as you're socially distant on that part. Because otherwise, it's like I'm not running with no mask. I look at the NFL referees. I'm like, how are you guys doing this? I'm like, you must have like a hole cut in the middle, or how do you blow a whistle? Like anything like that. I know there's electronic whistles and things of that nature now. So just a whole new, a different world that we're living in now.
It inspired me. It inspired me to buy this new Under Armour mask that's supposedly for athletes. And it's supposed to, be better for working out in. So we'll see. I don't have it yet. It's going to be here tomorrow. And I'll try it because I did 300 floors on the stair climber again today, and I almost did the same thing, and it was gross. I don't want to do it again. It's nasty.
Yeah, don't do that. But Brian has been to Everest like 3 or 4 times now, according to the virtual climbing thing. So
almost twice.
Hats off to you with the virtual Mount Everest. Everything's going to be virtual, and now we're going to start giving out Guinness World Records for most virtual times climbing Mount Everest or whatever. And it's going to say Brian E. Roach.
No.
Yes.
No.
Hey, I'll tell you what. If you were up on Everest and the only thing there was to eat was toast, you would do it. Instead of other people's bodies, of course, like that one movie. So, anyways.
Yes, I would eat toast if that was all that. I mean, look, if I'm in my house and that's all that there is to eat, I might eat it.
Oh, there you go. That's always good. Well, Brian.
I just wouldn't like it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me as always, buddy. Of course, we get off track at the end, so everybody can just shut it off. And if you listen to us in 1.5 speed or whatever, how about I sound like this? And if you were listening to it like that, I'm really screwing them up now. So, it just breaks my heart, but it doesn't bother me if you skip over this stuff. We just hope that you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you are, and that, that helps do good things and stuff here for the Steel City Underground podcast and our entire platform. So, thanks once again to all of our listeners and supporters that are out there. My name is Joe. His name's Brian. And until next time, we encourage everyone to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.